On behalf of Milton Shoss's family, I'd like to welcome you here. We're going to begin with some verses from the Bible. From Isaiah chapter 40, verses 6 through 8. A voice says, "Cry out." And I say, "What shall I cry?" All flesh is grass, and all its beauty is like the flower of the field. The grass withers, the flower fades, when a wind of the Lord blows upon it. Surely the people are as grass. The grass withers, the flower fades, but the word of our Lord shall endure forever. From Psalm 103. Tender as a father with his children, God is merciful with God's worshipers. God knows how we are fashioned. God remembers that we are but dust. The days of humanity are as grass. We flourish as a flower in the field. The wind passes over it, and it is gone, and no one can recognize from where it grew. But God's compassion for God's worshipers, God's righteousness to children's children, remain age after age, unchanging. From Psalm 73. My flesh and my heart may fail, but God is the strength of my heart. God is my portion forever. Isaiah chapter 41, verse 10. Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will sustain you through my power. Are you all able to hear me okay? Okay. There are several people who are going to eulogize Milton. And first, I would like to call up Milton's children, Robert and Cindy.
We're going to actually do our eulogy with Dad in South Carolina, so we still have some time to do that. But we wanted to just spend a few minutes this evening, this afternoon, talking about him a little bit, sharing some of our feelings about him, and we thought we would do that together. And then when we're done, his brothers, who this is the last time that they'll have a chance to be with him, we thought, and Sandy for Isidore would have their last chance to say goodbye. It's his last time in Houston. So I'll just start by saying that. And in large part, I think Sammy had a lot to do with it. We all knew at a certain time that it was time for Dad to leave South Carolina and go someplace where he had more family. And that he came here, for me, was really a special thing. I didn't see it. I didn't expect it, really. I didn't know what to expect. But we really reestablished our relationship. In a way, I wasn't there a lot during high school and college, and we really got to be friends and buddies, and it was a unique and special thing for me. And that's, I think, Cindy.
And a couple of comments that I wanted to make is I was down here. I had, from time to time, I did little stealth visits into Houston for a night or 2 nights, and I was here about a month ago. And I took my dad to Papacito's for dinner, and he was doing great. He polished off a gigantic platter and had a blast doing it. And we were talking the next day. We turned down the Fox News, and we were talking the next day. And he said, I feel very peaceful, very happy. I've had a wonderful life. I have no regrets. I've done everything I wanted to do. I've seen the places I wanted to see. I've been very blessed, and when the time comes, I feel very peaceful about that and very content. And, little did I know, or I guess little did he know, that the time would come so soon. But I take a lot of comfort out of what he said, and I know that his blessing on us and on all of you whom he loved dearly would be that all of us be able to say as much when we get to that point in our lives. The other thing is, you may have noticed in the program that there's a reference to our daughter Lucy's fiancé, Seth Litt. And that's a very new development. That's 6 days old that Lucy is engaged. And on another just quick visit to Houston last October, Lucy and I brought Seth down to meet my dad. And they really hit it off. They really bonded. They really, really liked each other. And my dad told Seth a lot of family stories. And so every time I talked to my dad after that, he would say, "So, any news on the Seth and Lucy front?" And I feel that he was so thrilled when I called him Friday night and said, "I just heard from Lucy. They're at Preservation Hall. Seth asked her to marry him. She said yes." And they're planning their wedding, and he was just absolutely thrilled. And so, when I spoke to him the day before he died, he was talking again about how thrilled he was, how happy, what a fine young man Seth is. So I feel like he was at peace about that, too.
And I think one of the things that he was always really happy about was when Uncle Joe would take him to MD Anderson, took him a couple of times, and he used to brag about how Joe knew the way around and was so helpful. And then the last time Uncle Joe was not feeling that well, I took him to the other doctors, but that was a special thing between the two of them, which I have this image of the two of them and Dad in a wheelchair and Uncle Joe and wandering through the halls of MD Anderson. But this time he couldn't, so I did it. So I was set to go do that with Dad, and that's when I got to the room. He had slept in, so we couldn't do it. But why I mention that is because it's I think it was God's will that it worked out that way. So that then I was there, and I stayed there all day with Dad, and we talked, and we enjoyed our company.
Had some hot dogs.
And he was having trouble getting up. He was very nervous. I would make them wrong, so I had to show him each step of the way that I was doing it okay. But he got weaker and weaker as the day went on, and we called the doctor, and they said, "Well, we'll see you in the morning, and if it's still a problem." And but I stayed there because of that, and I think that it's just God's will of saying, you need to be there, and you need to be there. I spent the night, and it was special. And again, I think just having him here in town was just a blessing for me and Gretchen. He got to meet us. He came over to the house a lot. He got to, I think in a lot of ways, all of you got to re-meet him a little bit too. So we're taking him back to South Carolina to be with our mom, and I know that's what he wanted. He couldn't have been clearer, but I think he couldn't have been happier that he came here, had his apartment, loved the time that he had. So I think that's all.
Well, one other thing I wanted to talk about is in the bio and the obituary in the program, it talks about many of his accomplishments as a physician, and he was very, very serious about his practice and his patients, and very, very good at it. I think he had a national reputation, and he was at the forefront of nuclear medicine, training at the federal nuclear facilities in Oak Ridge and so on. So he was very serious, but he didn't take himself overly seriously. And as serious as he was in that purpose was that was his serious side, and he knew how to seek and find joy in his life, in his other, on his other side. And he and my mother had a wonderful, wonderful marriage of 59 years. They, as it says in here, they went on 2 round-the-world cruises, and as gregarious and friendly as they both were, and as many friends as they had and as they made, many, many nights on those 110-night cruises, they would have a table for 2. And that was just, I always viewed that as such a beautiful sign of the romance that was still in their lives after 55, 56 years together. And he knew how to find joy in his family, his immediate family, his slightly more extended family. He loved the Sunday night dinners at Sam and Karen's with their kids and grandkids. He found his joy no matter what the situation, in his wines, in his travels, in learning to ride a horse with me. Maybe that was more joyful for me than him, etc. But that would be another blessing that he would hope for everyone in this room, is to find the joy every day in our lives.
It was funny you talk about the tech stuff. I remember one time helping him. He always, helping him with the computer. He'd get confused on this and that, and I was over there and I'd work with him a lot on it. And then at one point we were looking at it, he looked up at me and he said, in my generation, for me, I was the tech guy. I did nuclear medicine. I did all this stuff. I was the techie, and I don't get this at all.
So we just wanted to share some memories and some thoughts with you all. We're very grateful to Sandy and Bob for agreeing to host us all, after as many of you as can come, at their lovely home afterwards, and maybe we can all share some more memories. But with that, I think I'd like to turn it back over to our rabbi.
Thank you for sharing those very poignant memories, and I think you shared a lot of life advice for all of us. And in addition to being a rabbi, I'm a chaplain, and I often see people fulfilling their dreams until after they retire or until the time is right. And, the time is almost never quite right. So I think your dad modeled kind of taking life by its reins, and I'm a firm believer in that. Don't wait. If there's something that you can do that will bring you joy and not be reckless about it, you should do that, because it will enhance your life. And the fact that he took not only 1 but 2 trips around the world, 2 trips of a lifetime. What a wonderful legacy he leaves for everyone who knew and loved him, to really seize life and not wait, because I've seen all too often that it could be too late. And not just the big things, but the little things too. Like use the soap in the shape of a rose, that's a beautiful color, instead of letting it, there's some kind of poem or story about that, instead of, letting it fade into an ugly color or break off. Like, use it. That's what it's there for. Embrace life. And the 2 of you just did a beautiful job of sharing that legacy and many others of your dear father. I'd like to, before we continue with the eulogies, I'd like to ask everyone to turn to the 23rd Psalm in your pamphlet, and let's read together. It's in the middle. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. I'd now like to call up Milton's brothers, either separately or together, whichever they prefer, Sam and Joe to eulogize their brother.
Like Rob said, I didn't know Milton when I was young. He left. There was a big gap of years, and I got to know him as time went by. But he did a lot of little things that really left a lasting impression. I remember very well. I always wanted a dog, and my mother said no. He sent me a dog from Missouri. I remember going to the Railway Express, and there was a little Cocker Spaniel in a wooden crate with a little bitty can of evaporated milk on top of it. And he was special. He really was. And he had everything in order, and he really knew how to do things. He enjoyed life. He loved his family. And he was very proud of them. And he was a very accomplished radiologist. And we enjoyed having him here. I am so thankful that he got to know my grandkids, and they got to know him. And he will be missed.
I hope I'm able to continue with this, because I usually get very emotional at these times, and it becomes difficult. But I enjoyed your comments about the trips to, I'm bringing that up before I get the trips to Anderson, and it also was an enlightening with me in that I've been doing it the last couple of 3 years, and to go to Anderson is a chore, and it was this last time we went from 10 o'clock in the morning and we got home at 7:30 at night. And I think I must have walked 5 miles around Anderson pushing him with a wheelchair. But it led to where I couldn't do it this next time when they came, and I felt that one of them should be part of that decision making at that point. And it turned out to be a wonderful thing. I felt bad not to go, and yet I felt I couldn't. I needed somebody else for you all to do it, and it turned out to be a good decision. It could have been real bad on me if I thought something happened otherwise. And Rob, I talked to Rob and gave him the story, and Milton was very anxious and upset. And I think it was just a circumstance that appeared that the doctor who was taking care of him retired, and a new doctor came in, and she wanted a consultation to give her strength to make these decisions for an old person as to what to do and what not to do. And it involves people helping to make that decision, which I didn't think was right for me to be the one doing it. And so it turned out to be wonderful. Long story short, I called. I hate to go into all this on that evening, Tuesday, because I was thinking about it all the time. And I called, and the phone rang 10 times, and nobody answered. And I said, my God, it is 8 o'clock. And I figured, my God, they still there? Or maybe he's collapsed when he got home, because he was dead tired when we got home. And I took him. And I called again 5-10 minutes later, and it rang about 10 times again, and then Rob heard it. I think maybe when we were talking outside, maybe Milton at that point was picking up the phone and laying it down. And I think that's what happened, because apparently you didn't hear it, and he was playing because he was tired and he was weak. And but I was about ready to call 911 and everything else, because I couldn't imagine what was going on with him. And finally you answered, and I was so glad you answered. And it turned out that I was able to talk to him that evening. And you always wonder if things were meant to be. And it was something I'll never forget. So that's so much for that. I made a few resumes of the story of his life that I thought were something that I've said it gets to me sometimes. It's just a resume of things that I thought were very important. Maybe to me more than others. He was always a wonderful brother. There's no question about that. We had a relationship that was a treasured relationship. I was the third, and Izzy was the oldest, and I was the little kid that always, Izzy was ill at the time, and so it was always, we don't need the little guy. And it was me and Milton fighting against the others two, and that was the way we were raised up, as due to the process of illness and so forth. But we had a close relationship, and I always was close to Milton. And Sammy, of course, came along, and he was so much younger that I had a different relationship. But the story of that, anyhow, going on from that, I'd had a resume of things that are important, and it's amazing. One of the first things that came to my mind was he was a marbles champion. And nobody knows that, I bet you. My folks used to sell marbles in the store, and we'd go in the back, and we all had a group, the three of us, and Sammy wasn't around yet, but we'd have all a group of kids that were play marbles, and they'd buy marbles, they'd bring them into the back. Milton he could hit from here to way to hell over there with an Aggie or whatever you call it. Anyhow, he was not a official champion, but he was a champion of the neighborhood. And he'd win the marbles back and we'd sell them again. Nobody knows about that. He was a top-notch student at Rice, and he was right above me, and it was a mentor to me. I went to Rice when I was 16 years old. Finished before I was 18. So it was a mentor, and I mean, he was around that year. He was right a year or two before he left for his internship in Jewish Hospital. And I could go on with stories about that and so forth, but he was a mentor for me, and it was very important. The professor, his professional life, as Cindy said, was full of just wonderful achievements and so forth in radiology. And he had wonderful, happy marriage with Jane, which I was able to go to, and I saw them before they got married they first got married when I went to my internship, and I never forget staying with them. And anyhow, they were married, and I visited them in Cape and so forth, so I had quite a relationship with them. And the story of that is that, of course, they had, how many years? 59 years of happy marriage, and a couple of wonderful kids who have done extremely well, and a grandkid who's now engaged. So life rolls on. Mention the travels that y'all had. I mean, obviously his travels were just unbelievable. He around the world cruises and so forth, and it was amazing amount of travel that he did. And then the retirement he enjoyed in addition. We visited him at Hilton Head, and it was a real experience that he had in Hilton Head. And there he went to the farm, and we saw him there, and he made adjustments to the farm, so it was an amazing personality that he was able to adjust to different stages in life. That's about the other. I was just going to conclude by saying he was always a wonderful brother, and we have always had a tremendous relationship. He will be very much missed, but we know he's at peace.
O God, you have been our refuge from generation to generation. Before the mountains were born, before the earth was fashioned, from eternity to eternity, you are everlastingly God. But man, you crumble to dust. You say, "Return, O mortals." 1,000 years are in your sight as a passing day, an hour of night. I'd now like to call upon the last person who will be eulogizing Milton today, and that's Sandy, who will be speaking on behalf of her father of blessed memory, Izzy.
Thank you. I'm honored to be asked to speak on behalf of my father. And of course, he's not here, and I don't know what he would have said, but I have some ideas about what I think he might have said, and I know what I believe he would have said. So that's what I'm going to say. My little brother, Milton, was my best friend. He was my close companion. We grew up playing together, playing out in the backyard, playing baseball, and I guess marbles too, huh? And we studied together. I don't know whether we played baseball together more or studied together more, but I know we did both things. But Milton was somebody who I knew was always going to be there for me, and he always was. And in fact, when it was time to go to medical school, he changed where he was going to go to come and be with me where I was at Baylor, which I thought was pretty special. And of course, my time with him, as everybody would say, was way too short. But it was pretty wonderful. And he holds a very important place in my heart, in my life. So, speaking for me, I just want to say that Milton, my Uncle Milton, was as close as I could imagine to what my father was like. And I got to spend a wonderful week in Cape Girardeau. I think I must have been about 10. Does that sound about right? I got to spend a week there because Grandma and Grandpa took me to St. Louis and then took me to the Cape. And I got to spend this incredible week at their beautiful home, and with the swimming pool and the piano and just the fun and doing things together with the family. And it was just such a warm and wonderful family and a wonderful experience. And I didn't get to see them very much. And over the years, as I would see, usually it would be Cindy, and we'd sit down and just catch up at whatever stage of life we were at. And Cindy would say things that her dad said to her, and I would just sort of steal them and just imagine that, yeah, that's what my dad would have said to me. So thank you for letting me vicariously share your dad with you. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, each one of you, for sharing your words and your feelings from deep within your soul. So there's a prayer in Hebrew called the El Malei Rachamim, and traditionally it's said at a funeral service. So I'm just going to share with you the English today, and it will be done in Hebrew and English in Hilton Head. But many of you here will not be there, so we want to do this for you and to honor Milton's memory. El Malei Rachamim, O God, full of compassion, you who dwell on high, grant perfect rest between the sheltering wings of your presence among the holy and pure, who shine as the brightness of the firmament onto the soul of Milton Shoss, who has gone to eternity. God of mercy, bring him under the cover of your wings, and let his soul be bound up in the bond of eternal life. Be you his possession, and may his repose be peace, as we say together, Amen. Before I end with a brief concluding prayer from the Psalms, I just would like to make a few brief announcements. For those of you who might be interested, or if you know someone who might be interested, there will be a celebration of Milton's life at the Forum this coming Tuesday at 10:30 a.m. And you all are welcome. Anyone you think you might want to attend, please be sure to let them know. Milton's graveside service will be in Hilton Head Island this Sunday at 3 p.m. And finally, I should have announced this first, following the conclusion of our service, momentarily, there will be a reception at Sandy Friedan's home, and there are maps on the small desk right outside our chapel to her home, and you are all invited to be there with the family. And as Milton's children shared, it's a very special time for you to continue to share memories of him. It's such a comforting experience for the family to hear stories that either they may not have known, or that they have forgotten, or maybe they know, but you have a unique perspective from which to share it. So it's a unique opportunity to do that this afternoon. I'd like to conclude with a very short excerpt from Psalm 90. We never know how many will be the days of our years. The days of our years are 70, or if by reason of special strength, 80. Clearly, for Milton, they were longer. So teach us, God, to number our days so that we may get a heart of wisdom. Satisfy us in the morning with your steadfast love, that we may rejoice and be glad all of our days, as we say together, Amen. And I guess I'm struck by the words that we may rejoice and be glad all of our days, because clearly that's how Milton led his life, and we can live ours by his example in that way. And what a beautiful living memory all of you can carry by living your lives in that way as often as possible. As we say together, Amen. This concludes this afternoon's chapel service. Again, thank you all for being here. Oh, I'm so sorry. Yes, I apologize. We're not quite concluded. And again, I completely forgot about this because we wouldn't traditionally do it at this time, but for many of you, because you will not be at the funeral service, we're going to conclude with the Mourner's Kaddish, which you can find on the back of your pamphlet. Please rise. It's in transliteration. And you'll notice, well, it doesn't have the English, but this prayer, it talks about uplifting God and honoring and praising and glorifying God. And we wouldn't necessarily choose to do these things at this time, which is precisely why we say the Mourner's Kaddish at this time, because it's a reminder of the broader perspective of life that's so hard to focus on during the time of a death. Please join with me. Yitgadal v'yikadash shemecha ba, v'yama divra chirute v'yamlich malchute, b'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chaye dechol beit Yisrael, b'gala u'v'zman karib v'imru Amen. Yehi shemei chaba mevarach le'olam almei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitchomam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudashah barichu le'elah minkol berchata v'shirata tush bechata v'nechamata daimichan b'yama v'imru amen. Yehi Shlomo Chaba min Shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. This concludes our service.